Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. This is episode 176. I'm going to title it Family Grieving. And it is a day late. I was out of town, and although I did get back last night, I did not decide to do this last night. I decided to get some other things done first. And so, as you might remember from episode 170, this on September 13th, my father died. He had a long, difficult illness with Parkinson's, and then Parkinson's with dementia. And then he died on the 13th, 2 days before my wife and I got married. And so, because of COVID and everything else, we were originally going to get married in Colorado, where my dad is, because he couldn't travel. Because of the disease that he had. But because of COVID, we had decided, we had changed that plan. We decided to get married in town, but with my father dying, I really needed to go and see my family in some sort of reasonable time frame. So myself, my new wife, and my son, we all went to Colorado and visited with my mom, my sister, my sister's wife, Steph, and their son, Kellen, and just had a rather lovely, sometimes sad, mostly just very sweet week. They're very, very kind. They're dealing with it as best they can. It's very, obviously everything's changed for them, and they're still working everything out. And, there's going to be yet more expenses because there was, like a last minute, ambulance ride and hospital visit before my father died. And so unfortunately, it's, it never, and frankly, as I learned when my wife died in 2015, like the paperwork is one of the worst things. It sounds bad to say it because, obviously the emotional part is just a wreck, but somewhere after the emotions, there's all this paperwork that has to happen and all these bills that have to be paid, and that's really unfortunate as well. So they're dealing with all that. And they'll be okay. I kind of made sure of that. I wanted to check in with them. Anyway. So they were very sweet. They had one night where they did it like a little wedding celebration for myself and my wife Gemma, and it was just wonderful. And it was weird because I had been there a few times. This is a relatively new house for them, but I had been there a couple of times, and it was, of course, very weird to be there and see my mom but not see my dad. That is really... It's just something that doesn't happen in my life. They'd been married over 50 years, and, there wasn't really such a thing as seeing one of my parents without seeing both of them. That just, the closest thing would have been like when I was a little kid and we did like why Indian guides, and I did that with my dad, or if I did something at my mom's library with her. But, being with one of my parents for a whole week without seeing the other one just didn't happen. So that, it kind of helped me kind of come to grips with it. And it still feels very bizarre. Emotionally, of course, we knew that this was a chronic disease that was going to just get the kind that was just going to get worse and worse anyway, especially once the dementia was added. With just Parkinson's, you can always hope that it's going to slow down or stall, and, and things might, get better. And also there's a lot of new treatments being worked out right now. You could always sort of have hope, but once the dementia was added, we knew it was on a timer at that point, and it was just, yeah. So he was just one of the good ones. As I've mentioned before, he had a rough time growing up. He was essentially like the second best, he was like the other son was like the one they really liked, and he was the second one. He'd also been sick as a child, so he was always, he had asthma. He was a little sickly. He ended up being shorter than he would have otherwise been by probably a good 2 inches, that sort of thing. And unfortunately, his parents sort of treated him like that, and his parents sort of were the kind to sort of punish severely anyway. They mellowed out, and I didn't know them in that way when I was a kid, but I sort of learned the story over the course of my life. But yeah, and Parkinson's and dementia, there's those things that, they just come out of the blue, and they don't hit people because of anything they did in their life. It's just something that happens. Real shame. We also did Halloween there, so we all dressed up, went around their neighborhood. We did it sort of in the COVID way, so everyone had masks, and we didn't actually knock on any doors, so we didn't have Kellen knock on any doors. So we only went to, and there was like another neighborhood kid. They were masked too, and they sort of ended up tagging along with us. We sort of maintaining our distance and walking, but there was a number of families who had figured out the right way to do it, which is not to do the normal thing, where kids knock on the door and you breathe on them and give them candy. It's where they put out like some sort of table, or a bowl, something like that, and the kids just come and get something, and then the people in the house will sort of reload the table or the bowl. And that's what my mom did. Actually, my mom stayed at home. She didn't want to do a bunch of walking at night. It gets really cold in Denver at night too. So she sort of refilled the bowls and waved through the windows and all that. And so the rest of us went out and watched with Kellen and had him get the candy and all that. And there was a couple of them that was sort of fun, where they had like little stakes on the ground, and at one of them you're just supposed to take the stake and the candy and just take the whole thing. The other one, you're supposed to remove the candy from the stake. But I think that was kind of a cute idea, because it made it look kind of spooky with all these stakes sticking out of the ground. So that was kind of cool. And yeah, other than that, we just did a lot of visiting. And a lot of chit chat and talking. Some, mostly just very normal conversations. A couple of kind of deeper ones. And and both my mom and my dad, neither of them want any sort of memorial service. So this was sort of like the closest thing that I was going to get, and it still felt really good because these are all my closest family. They are also the people who were living with him. And so it was good to just, share memories and talk a little bit about him and just check in with everyone, see how everyone's doing. And like that. So, of course, COVID made everything like that really weird too. We traveled by plane. We wore like N95 type masks. We were able to procure some of those, and we also I bought them through Amazon, face shields, and wore those the entire time. And it was not super comfortable, but it wasn't as bad as I was fearing. I was fearing like I would be going really nuts after a few hours of that, both wearing an N95 type mask and wearing a face shield. But really, like, once you get used to it, it's really not that bad. It was getting uncomfortable, mostly because the straps on N95 type masks, they keep the mask very tight to your face, and because of that, the straps are starting to kind of dig in after all that time. But even so, it was like that had taken hours, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. So I definitely recommend that, because then the mask that you wear over your mouth and nose, that, if you're following the science, those don't do too much to protect you. They're more about if in case you have a bug, preventing it from going to other people, because that's just kind of like how spreading works. You know what I mean? It's like if it's out in the air and you breathe it in, well, the mask will block some of it and it will help, but it doesn't do all that much if it's out in the air. However, when you have a mask, you're keeping, if you do have a disease, you're keeping it from going out into the air. And that's why masks do much more to protect other people around you than it does to keep you safe. However, face shields, which are clear plastic shields, the one I have is, the ones I got were pretty simple. It was a little bit of foam that goes over your forehead to keep your, so it doesn't dig into your forehead. And then it had a strap, and then it was just a plastic shield that goes kind of over your face, kind of sticks out, maybe an inch in front of your nose, something like that. And then it kind of curves around your face a little bit. And there's lots of gaps on the sides or anything. It's not like it's not a hazmat suit. It's just a face shield. Those, however, do, as the science is becoming increasingly clear, protect you rather than protect other people. The reason being is that if there is anything out in the air, if it's aerosolized still, if it's a little droplet, it's very likely to hit your mask shield rather than go around under it through your mask and into that way. Also, there is some indication that corona can be contracted from droplets going into your eyes. So wearing a shield, I would recommend it. In fact, the shields I got, even though they're very simple, they were like $6 a piece, and they're not meant to be used long term, but they're going to last a while. And I think what I'm going to be doing is, like when I go to the grocery store or other very public places, then I'm going to be using the face shield as well. I did it today, and I don't see why not. They're not expensive. They're not hard to get. They're super available, like on Amazon. I got one of, like, there was even multiple brands out there of them, and they all seem to be available, at least when I bought them a few weeks ago, sort of prepping for this trip. So yeah, so I would recommend that, actually, because the masks are great to protect other people, but face shields help protect you. They do a little bit to help other people as well. Like if you have the disease and you're breathing out and you've got your mask, well, whatever tiny bit escapes through your mask will also tend to get, deflected or blocked by the shield a little bit as well. So it does help other people as well, but it's something that helps you more, which is really nice, because that way you have something to help other people, something that helps you, and to me, it's just smart. So there's that too. I feel like I felt completely healthy the whole time through. It's very, very dry up in Denver. Oh my gosh, the high altitude and the fact that it's like, unless it's actively raining or snowing, it's like a high desert. It's like super dry. And it's just, and then there's of course central heat and air. The central heat is being pushed through the house and lowering the humidity even more. It is so hard to stay hydrated in Denver. It is really hard. You gotta drink water. Just keep drinking water. And but anyway, I feel good. Everyone feels pretty good. My wife kind of got dehydrated, but she's working on that, and she's already starting to feel better. So she didn't catch anything. She was just having a hard time keeping ahead of the water drinking that you need to do. So anyway, that is anyway. We'll get back to writing, and I plan on having a story for next Sunday. It's going to be tricky because we've got a big Utini cast coming up tomorrow, and I'm going to be focusing a lot on that today and tomorrow, which means I'm only going to have about half a week to do the writing, but I will make it work. So we will, I'll say here, we'll have some sort of story next Sunday. That's what I'm going to work towards. So hope you're doing well, and thanks for listening. Words and music, copyright 2020, CryptoBiography, LLC, all rights reserved, and we'll see you next time.